Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Good morning to all of you and welcome to the second day of the third European BioEconomy Stakeholder Conference. The aim of this early morning session is to recall the main conclusions of the parallel sessions held yesterday on human, social, financial, and natural capitals as enabling conditions for boosting bioeconomy in Europe. And this, of course, for setting the scene for today's activities. We will, you know, the program. We will have a plenary session in a plenary speech in a few minutes. And we will do this job this morning thanks to the kind cooperation, effective cooperation of the four chairs of the four parallel sessions that I mentioned, in particular, Peter Olesen, Danish Council for Strategic Research and Chairman of IT Government Board. He took care the coordination on human capital. Peter Schilsmeister, sorry, apologize. I know him since many years, but Peter was enough. The family name is too much complicated. Sorry for this. From the Federal Ministry of Science, Research and Economy, Government of Austria, and also Bio-Based Product Panel. He's chairing the Bio-Based Product Panel at the DG Enterprise. He took care of the session on social capital. And there, Dirk Karetz, maybe, Cavour consultant and director of Bio-Based Industry Consortium. He took care to the coordination of the session on financial capital. And finally, not least, Stefano Bisoffi from Consiglio per la ricerca e la sperimentazione in agricoltura from the Italian government. Natural capital was the session that he kindly coordinated yesterday. So I leave the floor to Stefano. Is missing? Maybe he's on the way. And okay, so Peter, please give us a short overview. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, from the session on human capital, I'm reporting back in 4 dimensions. One is the skills dimension, the second one is the jobs and employees dimension, third, education models and practices, and fourth, some generic observations and comments. On the skills dimension, we discussed that it's not just skills, new skills, but it's also very much proper combination of skills, and not always building new education from scratch. For example, there's more demand for a plant biologist than for a new bioeconomist who nobody knows what kind of an animal that would be. Very importantly, going across is the need for entrepreneurial and risk-taking mindset that has to come out of education. We looked at some inputs on the industrial demand side, and there are 4 main points here. Technical expertise in areas which have lost importance but now becoming crucial due to the bioeconomy concept, for example, plant breeding. Much focus on interdisciplinarity and team and networking skills. So that is asked for by industry. Also for a system that supports lifelong learning, both for young and old, both for academics and professionals and blue-collar employees. Also, it will be a good idea to include demonstration projects as a good translation case in education, as well as whole value chain, including side streams, must be enlightened as well. There are both a need and some early activities on how to map existing skills development programs and to use that as a basis for discussion with the demand side, and also to assess needs and benefits of international collaboration to create a global workforce and to increase also mobility of the workforce. As to jobs and employees, it was discussed that there are really millions of jobs out there, jobs associated with the exploitation and development of all kinds of biomass, blue, green, yellow, brown, white, and others, residues, byproducts, etc. And that the differentiation of jobs and education requirements must happen along the value chain. We must we must understand the specific requirements for each step of the value chain. For example, alternative crops, alternative production systems, how to protect and optimize various biomass types. Also, the development and handling of new processes and equipment is very important in job creation and skills development. There is a potential for export of technology and know-how, and both of them are associated with new jobs and skills. Again, coming from industry, there's a need for vertical linking of education and training. What do we mean by that? We mean that, for example, we need to train both farmers, farm workers, industrial workers, and researchers. And the same, of course, moving from the farm to the forest, to the food industry, to the sea, etc., etc. It's anticipated also that there are certain values in that trade unions and employers go together for a joint design of optimal education and training of the workforce, and also for choosing the best and most relevant suppliers of education and training. And also, we discussed that there is a kind of a need for a reciprocal training schedule, so that researchers and teachers need to visit farms and go into the fields in order to better understand, for example, the workforce needs for training. On the education models and practices, we discussed at length the need for focus on diversity and synergies between biological production systems, such as, on one hand, agriculture, forestry, fisheries, etc., on the other hand, microbes and industrial biotechnology, and absolutely also the synthetic biology toolbox. You must have respect diversity and synergies between these. Still, it seems that schools and universities are weak and slow in developing cross and multidisciplinary education programs. There's silo structures and monodisciplinary thinking. There's a strong need to combine skills in biology, chemistry, genomics and metabolic engineering, computation, modeling, economy, etc., to create designer engineers for the bioeconomy. One suggestion was made on the potential to learn from other industries that are also prone to major changes and are also having disruptive innovation taking place. For example, the automobile industry, where there are attempts to create a kind of new academy to structure and tailor-made the education and training to that specific sector. And the idea is that this kind of academy could be a harbor or a hub of a kind of contaminated environment where cross-fertilization can take place and where industrial and academic people meet and teach and mentor students and, by the way, each others. It has been suggested also in that discussion to implement such an academy structure or process at 4 levels. Start at PhD level, where we have experience on industrial PhDs working quite well, been developed successfully in Denmark for 34 years, and is now an EU model concept. Look at MS level, go for integrated education, maybe combining different bachelor degrees. Maybe also introduce a kind of short master model from Italy, with only 250 hours education and combined with job and working together also with companies. And of course, practice schools, apprenticeships and internships is very, very important. It's often forgotten. There's also, it was brought forward that there is some need to develop a broad specialized curricula, which sounds like a contradiction, but really illustrates a need for a balance. There might be opportunities also and advantages in building regional education clusters that may link academic and industrial expertise. In order to speed up implementation and development, there's a high need for teachers in order to cascade, that it goes farther and quicker. And there's a need for systemic thinking, build skills all the way from primary school to PhD. And then on the little bit more soft side, the bioeconomy needs to be developed as a mindset, not just a question of research, education and training. It must start at an early age and try to combine problem-based learning with opportunity-based learning. That means in fact, we have also not to teach just the employees, but certainly also to teach the whole society, including entrepreneurship and risk-taking. And finally, a few generic observations and comments from the session discussions. Many interventions in the discussion confirmed that there is really good progress since the Dublin Conference, and that there are many new but still scattered initiatives in education and training across Europe. But at the same time, the overall development and implementation of the bioeconomy, including full-scale biorefineries, etc., is now accelerating. And that means that slow development of new and relevant education and training concepts and programs may soon become a serious limiting factor for further growth. Universities and schools have to demonstrate leadership in stepping up on both volume and speed. One thought was that speed and volume might be increased through integration of education in larger Horizon 2020 projects, and also, for example, in the new bio-based industries consortium, BBI. This would lead to much more impact in this area. Coordination and certification at both national levels and across MS's member states is certainly an issue. And due to the very nature and complexity of the bioeconomy, there is a need for both integration across the knowledge triangle, and at the same time with the triple helix innovation model to include authorities and legislation, which is very important for framework conditions. Finally, we also discussed the EIT KIC model with the full integration of education into the knowledge triangle, and also integration in the partnership business plans, and with incentivizing competitive quality labels, seems presently to be the only EU-wide systemic approach. And this model may become an attractive model for the bioeconomy area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter, very much for this quite comprehensive summary on what you discussed yesterday in your session. For time constraints, of course, we have to move to the other speaker, who is the other Peter, who kindly chaired the session on social capital, addressing the role and concern of citizens and consumers. So please, Peter, continue.
Thanks a lot, Fabio. The session on social capital was a session which was loaded with panelists from very different backgrounds. For example, we had at the session Lynn Frewer, who is Professor of Food and Society of Newcastle University. We had Carlo Petrini, the founder of the Slow Food Movement, and we had Professor George Krouzos from the Athens University Medical School, who is a pediatric endocrinologist. So the discussion actually revolved not on such specific issues as in the other session, but we went a little bit more to the meta issues. And the issues circled around roughly three larger topics, which were perception, communication, and education. And we found that to answer the question how to mobilize social capital for a sustainable benefit of mankind within the framework of bioeconomy, we have to assess the perception of new technologies, the perception of bioeconomical technologies, and this certainly also dealt with the perception of food and GM technologies. One of the points which were stressed here was that perception varies quite much if you take the point of view from an expert or if you have the point of view from the general public, since they even have different matrices of perception. The experts tend to have a rather technical and rational perception, whereas the general public, depending on its information, tends to have often more a personal view of the issue, also quite often an emotional view of the issue. And it's like if you have fear of flying, rational explanations won't help you there. And probably also if you have a fear of GMOs, rational explanations won't help you there either. So perception also varies greatly depending on the lines of perception of risk, perception of benefits, and of moral concerns. So perception of risk is one which is always there if you introduce any new technologies. Perception of benefits here is quite depending, and also moral concerns play quite a role. And this also varies not only across various sectors, but also quite geographically, which was, at least for me, a little bit surprising, because when you hear that moral concerns play a greater role within Asia and America than in Europe, whereas in Europe you have more risk and risk-benefit assessment. At least for me, it was a little bit surprising. And what was not surprising was that across the sectors, various sectors have different acceptance, and that for new technologies in the pharmaceutical sector, you will have greater acceptance than in the plant sector, and for the plant sector in turn, more than in the food sector. Coming to communication, we found that there is often a dichotomy between science and scientists and the rest of the world. It was said and not disputed that the ivory tower of scientists is meanwhile obsolete in the 21st century and might only fitting for some exceptional cases only. A social dialogue has to be instigated, but this has to be a dialogue in itself, and this dialogue has to be on eye level and arm's length. So it has to be a two-way dialogue where not only the general public has something to learn from the scientists, but also vice versa. The scientists have something to learn from traditional methods and from the general public. And this in turn can lead to further developments, and the deployment on innovation always relies on a successful communication here. And scientists can not only teach their new methods, but also can learn much from traditional methods. And it was also a question of the education, that education should not go only one way, but it should be at the dialogue level. And as I said before, since the background of the panelists was so diverse, these were the few points that we could agree upon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Peter. Great synthesis of what came out from the session that you chaired yesterday. So now we move to Dirk. Dirk took care of the coordination of the session on financial capitals, ensure investment funding in the sector. Thank you, Dirk. Please continue.
Thank you, Fabio. Good morning. So I will try to give you the feedback from the, let's say, financing session. And we had a very good discussion during the session, thanks to the three panelists, which were Barend Verachter from the Commission and the BBI, Gunther Vestel from Vestel Capital, and Carlo Mango from Fondazione Cariplo. But certainly also thanks to the participation of the audience. We really had a very good discussion and an interaction. I tried to summarize in one slide. There will be a report, I heard, which will be more extensive. So if you look to, let's say, in general, what is available of possibilities for financing in Europe, it's not too bad. We see that we have all kinds of financing, starting with Horizon, or now the public-private partnership, which is more focusing on innovation.
If you don't move.
Yeah. Sorry. We have risk capital, we have the European Investment Bank, we have the structural funds, so the regions, we have foundations, private banks, and in addition to that, we have member states and regions with own funding. So we have a broad area of possibilities. But we have seen in a study also presented by Hunter that there is a shortage, certainly in early stage in seed capital, and we also heard from the audience that in some regions there's also a shortage in late stage, so mainly focusing on spin-offs and SMEs. We also discussed what could be done to overcome this hurdle to attract more investors. One solution was to attract additional investors by raising awareness. It's also seen that you'll have seen that industrial biotech or bioeconomy, it's not visible enough because a bio-based product is a product, and how to explain the benefits, it's not easy. How can this be done? One of the examples was by setting up, for instance, a dedicated investment funds for the bioeconomy, for instance, under the umbrella of the European investment funds, but also by better communicating successful examples so that it becomes more attractive towards other investors. Another example we heard was coming from France. France has set up a public investment funds, and they co-invest in, for instance, SMEs in which venture capitalists invest. So it's a kind of sharing the risk, finding additional funding from public funds. And apparently they also had some good examples. And this is something that kind of a best practice that can be developed in other regions or member states. In some areas, for instance, for certain applications, it would also be good to attract, let's say, the healthcare or the healthcare biotech investors, because healthcare biotech is still seen as more sexy compared to bioeconomy, and everything which is sexy attracts more, well, not only financing, but we were focusing, of course, on the financing. Another aspect was there are also more and more green tech or sustainability funds, but to attract these funds towards the bioeconomy, we have to explain more the sustainability, the environmental benefits of the bioeconomy, and that's not always easy to do. So explaining more sustainability, environmental aspects to attract also these kinds of funds could be an opportunity. Another aspect we discussed was that we should start collaboration between SMEs and large companies from the beginning. Often SMEs starts to work, and then, let's say, at a certain moment, they start to look for collaborations with large companies. But we could have a much better and easier collaboration also in the later stage if they start already at research level, for instance, collaborations. If we go more further in the innovation chain and we go to, let's say, setting up demonstration plants or production plants, if we compare Europe to, for instance, the United States, we see that in the United States it's quite easy to obtain 50, 60, 70 or even more % of funding subsidies, which is completely impossible in Europe due to our EU state aid rules. So that's certainly, if you want to be competitive and attract this kind of funding, certainly something we have to look at and compare with other parts of the world. Otherwise, we have a competitive disadvantage. And finally, we have seen that although we have many funding possibilities in Europe, the access to this kind of funds is quite difficult for several reasons. First of all, the funding possibilities are fragmented. The way to obtain these funds are completely different. The procedures are different, and often the procedures are too long. While, for instance, in the States, you go to the federal state, to the state itself, and let's say with 2 nice dossiers, you can, in a very short time, obtain funding. While in Europe, it's a nightmare if you look to all the criteria, all the different ways, all the different procedures to obtain funding. So these were, let's say, the most important topics, which will be elaborated further in the feedback.
Thank you. Thank you, Dirk. Thank you very much. Now we move to the summary related to the last panel session that was on nature capital, how to protect, in particular, how to exploit them. Thank you, Stefano. Please continue.
Thank you, Fabio. We had a very good panel, a diverse panel with Mauricio Bellon from Biodiversity International, who is a specialist in agrobiodiversity, Bettina Heimann from the agricultural sector, Martin Scholter from the marine sector. So we covered a broad spectrum of competencies. Just 2 slides. The first consideration was that the positive relationship between the bioeconomy and biodiversity are perceived as a need. Bioeconomy is based on bioresources, so the first imperative is to protect the capital if we have to live off the interests. But that it is not yet to be taken for granted. The history of agriculture development is one of erosion of biodiversity. So the bioeconomy must find new ways to protect its capital. On the other hand, there is a sense of urgency that is dictated not only by the bioeconomy strategies, but also by the climate change issue and the sustainability issue and the need to produce more food and feed for a growing population. The second message is that a long-term approach must be taken. I mean, it's not only necessary to focus on short-term perspective, but the risks and the opportunities of the bioeconomy should be kept and set in a long-term framework. The concept of cascading that is inherent in the bioeconomy concept is potentially a very important issue. I mean, multiple sources of added value to the biomass may promote a diversity of biomass types, a diversity of products, and in that way increase resilience and robustness of agricultural systems. If there are more than just one outputs or potential uses for one biomass type, the whole system is more robust. The whole life cycle assessment of production models, also the existing production model, should be regarded vis-à-vis sustainability. Also from the economic point of view, also economic sustainability of business as usual model are to be seriously challenged. And probably in the bioeconomy concept, also the ecological intensification of agriculture, primary production is included. Another consideration is the healthy environments are overall, all things considered, more productive than simplified ecosystems. Especially in the marine sector, there is huge potential from the improvement of ecosystems. Diversity also need not be at the plot level or meter by meter level, but also with it can be considered at the landscape level. I mean, richness of different ecosystem types at the landscape level. We consider the central role of ecosystems. We need to better understand their functions, both the agroecosystems and the marine ecosystems. The role of bacteria has been stressed, not only on the biotech side, but also in their primary role in the functioning of natural ecosystems, let's say soil bacteria, but also human biome or animal biome bacteria, which is still probably largely unknown or little known. Then, if we are going to agricultural models that are more adapted to the territories and the local situation, breeding programs, especially in the agricultural sectors, need to go for specialized cultivars instead of all-purpose cultivars. Further exploration of resources and potential uses of biomass is still needed. We are in the infancy. Very interesting examples have been brought to the attention of the audience today and yesterday, but more is still to be done. The focus on marine resources, both at biological, ecological, and management of resources is needed. There is probably greater potential in the marine sector than in agriculture, also due to the fact that the marine sector is still in its infancy if compared with agriculture. I mean, the marine sector is largely based also still on the hunting-gathering model that was prevalent before the onset of agriculture. Finally, no, not finally, but the last but one consideration is that public policies must have the public good as a priority. There are regions where biodiversity is kept, not only in the sources of origin of biodiversity, but also in communities of local farmers that have a role in preserving agrobiodiversity. But these are essential, but there is an emphasis of the need for benefit sharing. Finally, come to a point that has been mentioned also in other groups. We need good examples. We need business cases. We need good stories, success stories, and we must improve communication. Otherwise, the message will remain in a restricted community and we are not able to involve the society at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. Thank you very much for this summary. Thank you to all the four speakers here this morning for the great job that they did yesterday in managing, coordinating this very relevant session. You understood the outcomes, so very, very important for boosting bioeconomy in the future years. But also thank you for preparing the summary this night and this morning very early for us, because your session, well done yesterday, late in the afternoon. So thank you to all of you for this. And very short communication for the people here. You surely know that we will have 3 satellite events in the afternoon of today after the end of the conference. So I wish to recall you that you can attend a satellite event on Aranet platform. There is another one very important as the former one that I just mentioned, arranged by the BioEconomy Observatory from DGJRC, and also OECD workshop on bio-based issues, industrial biotechnology priorities, etc., etc. All this will be this afternoon. The former in the Sala Inaudi, the second one in Sala Giolitti, and the third one in Sala Sella. But I will recall this at the conclusion session of this morning. So thank you very much. Now I leave the floor to Dr. Joanna Dupont from Europa Bio, who is going to chair the coming session, which is hosting of the plenary session of the second day of the conference. I wish you all a very fruitful, productive second day of conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabio. Thank you, everybody. As Fabio said, my name is Joanna Dupont-Inglis. I'm Director for Industrial Biotechnology at Europa Bio. And I'm delighted to introduce this session, which is on the bioeconomy as a building block for the green and circular economy and for the European industrial renaissance. So the kinds of topics that we're going to look at in this session are how the bioeconomy and the circular economy fit together, how can the development of one contribute to the developing goals of another, and how will they evolve together? We'll also be looking at how do we enable this to happen without putting pressure on natural resources, whilst adding value and contributing to Europe's economic recovery. Now, I know what you're thinking. No one can cover all of these topics in a mere 20 minutes. But we're going to try, and we have on hand an expert, Professor Lena Lange, which will help us in this task. I've already fallen off Professor Lange's Christmas list, I think, by announcing to her yesterday that she only had 20 minutes for her presentation. So I haven't got much to lose, I think, if I say we'll try and keep it maybe even a tiny bit shorter so we have time for some questions from the audience. But to introduce Professor Lange properly, Lena is a professor in biotechnology at Aalborg University in Denmark. She has reached research director level in both industry and academia, and has, in doing so, acquired extensive experience from all parts of the value chain, from research to technology, development, innovation, and commercialization. So, Lena, over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you. Very good. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being in this wonderful place of Torino. I'm sorry I don't have enough time to look at it, but it's fantastic what goes on here. And just imagine, we are so close to where they really, in Europe, took action and implemented the first advanced biorefinery. I think that is inspiration in itself. Let me also say that I have had the pleasure of being part in Copenhagen and in Dublin and now here. And I see so much difference. It looks like we are really moving. We feel the sense of direction. We feel like we are coming together and we know what we are doing and know what still needs, and we have the humble position that we also know there's a lot more to be done. I will focus a bit on that. I think we are all in agreement here that bioeconomy is the strongest card to can deliver on the EU vision, smart, sustainable, and inclusive society. Inclusive meaning jobs. Means also rural and coastal development and so on, but I'm really saying jobs here. We need about a paradigm shift. We started what I call a one-to-one substitution. It was the oil refinery to be substituted by a biorefinery. So one hadn't imagined that kind of a centralized, huge investment and energy focused. And that's where we started. And biology is so much more. We know that, but we also have to get organized and capture it. And what we learned from the first day with the wonderful, inspiring speeches, especially the one from Gunther was fantastic, that there is the opportunities of diversification, of decentralization, of all that kind of uses, integrate value cascading and so on. Job creation, rural development, real sustainability, at the same time as business. It's not two different things. We can get both. Second message, let us all remember what it's about. It's biology. We have the oil, which is fossilization, has broken down all the complexity. Complexity is intact in the biology. So we can get so much more, not just substitute for energy, chemicals, materials, and so, but also for food and feed and pharma and so on. So much more is, and it's not just lignocellulose. Slip the tongue a few times during the meeting to say it is lignocellulose, it's also proteins, it's also, it's not just plants, it's also meat and fish and so on. It's broad. Let us also remember the value, the pyramid, that if we just burn it, it is at the bottom, it is worth almost nothing seen from an economy point of view. We need the energy, but we can get it from other sustainable sources. We can have to work up chemicals, fuels, everything in the materials part, but also the food and feed. and farmer. And let me have, the word silo has been mentioned a few times. If we weren't and really work on unlocking the full potentials of bioeconomy, we will have to work beyond and between silos, breaking the silos. We need the farmer and the health people and the biorefinery, the biotech and the chemistry, the humanities and social sciences and business models and so on. It's much broader than most of what we are talking about. Technologies alone doesn't do it. I'm a technologist, I'm a biotechnologist, I'm a molecular biologist, but technologies alone don't do this change we are having. What I really want to do here was to address the circular economy seen from the bio part. And there was this very excellent contribution from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where they were presenting the whole circular economy concept in a wonderful program and a really good book. But the green side was very sporadic. Not really well thought through, I would have to say. So I have to challenge it. So what I've done here is to try to work a bit more. And here we zoom in on the biology part of it. So what I can see, if we start from below, from the consumer, if you don't eat all the food, if there's something waste there, there's a chance that it can be used directly as feed, product to product. That's a basic. Then we also have, if we are splitting it a bit apart and take some of the complexity, the proteins and the arabinosilin with its complexity and so on, we can have it as building blocks going into the product manufacturer. So we keep the complexity of the bio and use the complexity in the next product. And then basically we have the building blocks where we are breaking everything down to monomer, sugars, or amino acid, or whatever, the building blocks. And those we can recycle back into materials manufacture. So in this sense, we have like an economical that we go to product complexity. We can use in other products or manufacture materials. And then most importantly, we have to make sure that the soil is kept intact. So we have to circle back the minerals to nature. Here it's written in another way with some examples. You are all knowing these areas. I can't skip going through, but it's, yes, you can take a picture, then I will go on. Because this is just giving examples. You have it in your mind, I'm sure. So, other example, we also have to remember the cascades. And here, for instance, product-to-product cattle feed, and then go on the proteins, so endobiotic, prebiotics, sugar platform, and so on. I will zoom in on the prebiotics. An area where if we don't use so much to break down all of the cellulose in the plant cell walls and in the C5 sugars, we can make the prebiotics. And let us just zoom in on the beauty of this structure. There is good reason not to always break it down to monomer sugars for building up to something else. Why breaking down beauty, which can be used as it is? And here is the opportunity where I'm working myself is getting oligos with prebiotic effect, healthy, stimulating the healthy flora of your gut and the animal so that you get a more healthy and more robust, resilient organism functioning. Let us remember the blue value cascade. I shouldn't get lost in too much, but there's so much possibilities out there. But we need to get organized in getting beyond where we are, where most is focused on the agricultural crop residues. And let us here get inspired by nature. We were told like that in the first, and Gunther told us. Here, what we studied in my group was to work on the leaf cutter ant, collecting the green leaves, bringing it home to its biorefinery. It is a green leaf, a green biorefinery. We worked and found out with a metatranscriptomic approach and some good search of the sequencing, find out they have all the enzymes they need to break down a green biomass. It is such an inspiration. And what do they use it for? What they are using it for is to building more fungus. Fungal biomass. So now they are not living of the sugars. No, the sugars are being used by the fungus, and the fungus is itself the feed for the whole colony. So when the ants started growing the fungus, they grew from a few hundred colony up to millions in complex societies. This was what it made that they had stable, nutritious food available for all of their offsprings and the whole colony. Feeding by the fungus. Here's a fungus. We are not going to live, the whole world is not going to be fed by fungi and picking mushrooms. But remember, look at the percentages of protein in such kind of fungus. The ants showed the way. I mean, the chicken mushroom of the termites, they're just as clever. Up to almost half of the biomass is protein. So, I mean, my vision is obvious here. I mean, we were breaking household waste, municipality waste. We can grow fungi, not by picking mushrooms, but growing the mycelium and make a new group like the termite and like the ants, where you are picking it in the sense of you are making in big tanks. You can make fungal biomass to be the animal feed. So suddenly, can you imagine Sao Paulo and Beijing and all the municipality waste? We can grow feed for biorefinery to an extent which will substitute a huge amount of what we use land for. And feed is not a little tiny part. It's 72% of all arable land in the world where we grow feed. So this is the big things we're talking about. Okay, new crops. People say all of the biomass already used. I have to say twice the yield with half the environmental impact has been evidenced under Danish limited sun, okay, but still, sometimes we had a beautiful summer this summer. But Surs Uffe Jacobsen, Aarhus University has demonstrated it's possible by new types of crop and pattern using sun and soil better, taking more care of not have the runoff of and polluting the environments. Remember much more, many types of waste. Only if we include all that, we will have all of this released of the potential and creating the jobs and have the resource efficiency and have room for the biodiversity and what else we want to need for actually having a world which is worth living all over. For all this, we need a lot of new things to go on. I've already accomplished a few in my areas I want to say. Be happy, we have a lot of more to go for in the fungi. They can deliver. All of what I'm writing here, I mean, many groups of fungi, we have only used and exploited enzymes from a limited, tiny part of the fungal kingdom. I can tell stories about all these different projects in my lab. But we can also go and be inspired, and there was much more we found where biomass conversion takes place in nature. So that is possible. So biomass is there. We can save land by doing this right. We are not working on stealing feed. We are providing feed and food. And there is the technologies working together. We can manage it. So what is one of the things, now I'll take you in a one slide detour on molecular and genomics, and that is the problem is that biologies are submerged in data. I mean, they can hardly not think about solutions and biological questions because the genomics and the metagenomics and the databases are just, overwhelming us. So what we did in my group was we found a new way where we can actually analyze sequences where we can predict the function of an enzyme just based on its sequence. And my good old, my eldest son, who actually is a statistician and mathematician, and he said, what you've done is the same as it did under World War II, where they broke the code. Because we say we are not aligning because that's a whole alphabet against the whole alphabet. I mean, it's too much. You don't see the words. So we separate in words and compare peptide, small n-mer peptides with the others and find out which are the important ones. And then we look only for the important one, not for the overall. So we can make use of all that data, information, knowledge, building new solutions. It's possible. Then I'm always, after I have been talking, I'm always being asked the question, you didn't address the point food versus fuel. But I think it's so obvious that I didn't address it. But now here I give it a few thoughts. Let us make a new way of talking about it. Let us say we have, for instance, baking wheat or a wheat crop. That is 1 food unit, 1 hectare. One kind of barley for feed is 1 feed hectare. Let's say that's what we want to get out of it. Don't steal anything of that. We can make that contract. Biorefinery can deliver on that. On top of that, deliver on the chemicals, materials, and fuels, and so on. That's doable. You just do it differently. You don't take the grain just for food and then you do something else with the biomass, but you can actually, if you look at it together, what you get out of the crop, it's possible to get food, protein, animal feed, fuel, fertilizer. And we heard it from the brand example the first day, that's what they did. They were adding to what would get out of the same hectare. And you can get through almost all of the modern holistic approaches to biorefinery, where you don't call it a biofuel, you call it a biorefinery because you are delivering much more than fuel. You're delivering food and feed and fertilizer and so on. But let us calculate and let us take people serious when they set food versus fuel and have answers ready. And this is a kind of readiness. We just have to say, yes, we will deliver. We don't take it away, but we deliver on top of that more, which is also needed to substitute for the fossils. And then I have 5 more minutes. I have a few slides now where different kind of what needs to be done seen from the EU. Not so many pictures here. Pictures must be in your own head. You know what the means. We need more coherence, more strategic system thinking. Collaboration across disciplinary for integrated solutions. Common access. We have to share more. Common access to infrastructure and upscaling. It can be put more in system. We can do that in the different regions all over Europe. We can be better in creating the markets for bio-based products. It's just like we have only been talking like blend-in fuels and so on. That is only addressing the fuel part. Everything has been addressing the fuel part, not the other part of what we are delivering. So creating new markets, the feed is easy. There we have a market, but still there are many other of the bio-based new functional materials. Functional materials is a big thing. And it's a big thing you need to think about, durability and how they are working in 10 years' time if they start using the renewable materials. Jesper, in the Lego brick, I mean, if it be grown pale or break in 10 years, they stop having the customers. Huh? You need durability. We need all this to take serious. Improved framework condition include workers' health condition, building skills through new bioeconomy relevant. We already have that. All these, we have to work across, coordinate, strategic in order to build momentum to this change. Stimulate, optimate, and scalable use of biomass. Here, there are so many calls which make us go apart instead of working for the integrated value cascading. We have fuel, energy alone calls. We have food alone calls. We have everything is breaking us from working together. And that happens in national and EU programs. And it keeps on, even though we have seen this. So we have simulating new ways of knowledge. We need new ways of knowledge sharing. It is the whole foundation of the bioeconomy can be shared. And the patents, which are really useful for the businesses on top of that common base. Developing new business models. Much too few business models thought through. The people in primary production need to have their share in a vertical manner of the value added. Otherwise, we don't get the new crops growing. Okay, structural funds. We had this very much addressed. We need strategically and coordinated. Build a Europe by well thought through international collaboration. This is one of the points I think we have hardly not touched upon here in this meeting. The international collaboration. Outside Europe, there is a world. That world is growing faster than Europe. We'll better take more interest that we can make better connection and better business with the rest of the world if we already start in working together in a research collaboration, but strategically thought through so we don't just learn the others what we already are better to here in Europe. So we have to move faster to ensure strong technology export. Jesper again mentioned that. That gives jobs and sustainability. Based on an actively growing bioeconomy here in our home base, the best way of getting people to understand and wanting our technologies is actually to show that it works. So in this way, we have so much opportunity, but we are right now moving too slow to take full advantage of these opportunities. So my message is we must show the value, not just feasibility studies. That was what it was said. Stop dreaming, start driving. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lena. I think that goes down as the Yes We Can speech of the third BioEconomy annual conference. I think it really gives us a really inspiring idea of how the bioeconomy is already part of the circular economy and has so much more potential if we can just learn from nature in terms of playing an even bigger role in helping us move towards this more sustainable economy. I think we might have time for one or two quick questions, if there are any. Yeah, there's one there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Great talk. Roberto Tuberoso, University of Bologna. I have a question for you and also for the audience. It's been great yesterday and also today to be here. Very stimulating. Your talk extremely inspiring. I will say what I've said other time with other people here. I have the impression that in the EU, sometimes we don't like to focus on the big picture. I'll give you an example. Food security. My catch line is 70% of our calories derive from 3 crops: corn, wheat, and rice. I'm pretty sure if we meet again in 30 years here, it will probably be the same. What is the point? Where I'm getting at? I think for the future, we need every little bit of technology on every little bit of food and feed niche that we can get at. So for example, mushrooms. I work on fungus, but I work it on the other side because fungus are the causes of 20–30% losses sometimes of yield of crops, and they are also having a lot of problems for health. So it's perfectly okay with me what you do. I admire what you're doing. But as you said, the whole world will not be fed by fungus. And I'm not sure if we all agree on this or not, but I think it's a pretty sturdy statement. So what is the point? I would like to know your opinion on the policies that Europe is doing in promoting at the right level biotechnology for the problems that are major, also in terms of quantity, for the future of mankind, in terms also quantity of food. Yesterday we have heard from Mr. Petrini that we have enough food to feed 2 Earths. Personally, I respectfully disagree on this. And I think Europe has responsibilities because it was said that one of the problems is public perception. So I think our politicians, our EU commissioners, Paolo De Castro, has changed the way he was talking 5 or 10 years ago. Now he also promotes sustainable intensification of crop production, like we all do. So personally, and I'll cut it here, I apologize for being too long, I think Europe should devote more attention at the research level on the primary issues of mankind, considering that also we import a lot of food, at least Italy. We import 50% of our plant-derived products. Thank you.
Thank you for this very interesting question. My first answer is we are on the same side. I have spent quite a lot of my time. I was board chair for the International Wheat and Maize Institute, 6 years, and I was in program chair for International Rice Research Institute, because I think it's the most important thing you can do in the world. So then I had the pleasure of being vice chair in the advisory group to the 7th framework program. And there I found it difficult to get through with an open international interest in openly working with the rest of the world. No one was against it, but not much happened. And I think we are, I have great hopes for Horizon 2020 that we will do better here. But we have to go for it. It not just comes by itself. The second part I would like to say is that what we are talking about here, if we deliver like we have been discussing in these 2 days, then we will be delivering also to a stronger and fuller use of the crops of wheat and maize and rice. We will be able to also deliver the technologies where they can get more feed out of their production. Right now, the rice feed is not the rice biomass is not used because of it is destroying the mouth. It's too hard. But we can do it in a biorefinery approach. You can solve that problem. In the corn, we could get much more out of it. We have, in CIMMIT, we found out that you only need to have around 1/3 of the straw to go back to have the texture and the soil quality intact. You have more you can use for more. So yes, if we establish a better and stronger, strategically thought through, not just philanthropy, because we also have to build good Europe where we also get a part of the growth for our jobs and our welfare. But thought through that we are delivering the important technologies available for the world in a faster mode. And that's what we are onto if we do what we talk about here. So I think both can be united in one goal and not a discrepancy. And then the last part of the fungi. The newest thinking in crop breeding is that the breeders have worked much too long on just breeding the crop species. They must breed together with the microbes around it, the positive microbes, against the plant pathogens, but with the fungi and bacteria growing and making them stronger in utilizing the nutrient and the water, also when you have climate change challenging conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lena. Thank you, everybody. I think that was a fantastic discussion. I know we could go on all morning, but I also know that we have a lot more to get on to. So I'd like you all to join me again to thank very much Professor Lena Lange. Right, now it's time for some of us at least to get some exercise and stretch our legs, because now we move into a splitting of the session this morning into two groups. The first of which will leave us now for Sala Giolitti to discuss the topic of global food security towards Expo 2015. And I believe that room is at the top of the stairs, just on the right of the reception area. That session is going to run from 9:45 until the coffee break at 11. I'll just leave a little pause for everybody to make their way out. For those who want to stay, though, and who don't feel like moving just now, you're most welcome to stay for the next session. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this session, which is dedicated to the implementation of the bioeconomy at the level of the regions. This session is going to look at the major barriers and opportunities associated with the process. And the differences between the European regions are often remarkable. This is remarkable in terms of not only biomass availability and bioresources, but also the level of bio-based industries that are there, the infrastructure and the market opportunities. So, because of the differences in the different bioeconomy strategies and in the different regions, it's necessary to build strategies that really are tailored to their specificities. Could I ask everybody who's leaving to leave quietly, please? Thank you. So I think what is clear about what's the strategies in the regions is that there's not going to be any one-size-fits-all. So there's going to have to be a lot of differentiation into the ways that the regions develop their own bioeconomy strategies. But at the same time, as was remarked either by a policymaker, senior policymaker, or a senior industrial player last week at the European Forum on Industrial Biotechnology, if Europe wants to succeed in its goals of becoming more competitive, more economically resourceful, more climate friendly and more sustainable, the dictum might end up being cooperate or die. So I hope that our session chair doesn't take that too much of an indication of my chairing style, but I'm delighted to introduce somebody who's going to introduce the topic properly, who is Dr. Rogier van der Sand from the EU Council of Regions. He is a core member of the Zuid-Holland Executive Council, which is the Netherlands' most important province in terms of economic activity, agriculture, and the service sector. He is also Deputy King's Commissioner. So after Dr. van der Sand has given his introduction to this session, I will just then make a brief comment about how these sessions are going to be split again into two different topics. So Dr. van der Sand, over to you. Thanks.
I think it's better, yes. Thanks, Joanna. And Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of chaos in the morning helps to wake you up. So you're all stirred up for this session about the role of the regions. And firstly, I'd like to thank the Italian presidency for organizing this conference. It's an honor to address you on this important subject, and to do so in this beautiful historic surround of the city of Turin is even more great to do. And I think I just might simply state that we're amongst believers today once again. Everyone busy with bioeconomy, well, not everyone is over here, but everyone over here being busy with bioeconomy, knows and thinks that the tradition towards bioeconomy is undisputed, clear, and also politically a non-controversial fact. Then, ladies and gentlemen, why do I hear every day that Europe is still lacking behind and too slow in bringing innovation to the market? Are we still trapped in overcoming the valley of death, and are we not capable enough to unlock the full potential of bioeconomy? Ladies and gentlemen, today we'll talk about 3 topics. Firstly, the important roles of regions, where through a bottom-up approach, the transition to a bioeconomy is triggered, in my opinion. Secondly, I'll show you some examples, regional examples of bioeconomy profiles. And lastly, I will give some key ingredients, in my opinion, for a successful bioeconomy strategy in Europe. So, are the regions, as Commissioner Gegenquin said, the main drivers for the bioeconomy? Yes, I really do believe so. And why do I believe so? Because it's on the regional level and the local level that resources, biomass are mobilized in a smart and sustainable way, are transferred into new business opportunities, new markets, and not unimportant jobs. So also for this reason that I support the concept of sustainable biomass regions launched by Director Corbet in the bioeconomy panel, which will lead to a more common interregional approach on dealing with biomass. She stated on that yesterday. Now, why are the regions so important for the bioeconomy? I've got 4 reasons for that. Firstly, they are the linking pin between regional knowledge institutes, companies, governments, and civil society. Regions facilitate stakeholders' engagement, crucial for an effective implementation. Secondly, they are very familiar with the available regional value chains and innovative potential and projects. Thirdly, and not unimportantly, as we heard yesterday and this morning again, given their position close to the citizens, local and regional governments can increase public commitment, which is important for needs and benefits of the bio-based society. I can't stress that enough. And fourthly, through the regions, business and research institutes can be provided with basic services, facilities and projects with strategic levers among the main drivers for innovation, which are know-how and skills. Or, in other words, ladies and gentlemen, within regions, a swift adaptation to ever-changing circumstances is possible. And I don't see that happen on the highly centralized national or even European level. On the level of the regions, things will happen. So, what do we need on regional level? Like I said, not a one-size-fits-all, because a perfect European approach will not work. Neither will the perfect fuel, the perfect agricultural product. Perfection hardly ever exists. We must not forget that throughout Europe, we think differently about the bioeconomy. Each country, region, cluster, or partnership has its own accents and characteristics. Depending on the expertise, existing practices, and available resources, some regions might emphasize agriculture, others chemistry, or smart manufacturing, or even clean technology. And all these sectors are part of the same bioeconomy, and this is, in my opinion, the strength. During my work as a rapporteur, I have experienced an enormous variety of regional initiatives in the EU. Even today, the amount of regional clusters and bottom-up initiatives is increasing, and let's be happy about that. What we need is enough flexibility and a place-based approach for regions and cities to develop their own bioeconomy profile. Because I strongly believe that all regions, and not only the leading ones, can benefit from the transition towards the bioeconomy, if only they create a unique profile for the region and act accordingly to it. Given their strong points of the regions, they are all able to custom make a profile that has potential. As rapporteur and observer in the BioEconomy panel, I have requested the gathering of information and mapping of regional profiles as the first step to indicate Europe's full potential and especially full regional potential in bioeconomy. Therefore, I'd like to congratulate especially the BioEconomy Observatory, which is providing an excellent first overview of 12 regional profiles just yesterday. Interesting to hear. And beside this, the BURST project provides an excellent toolkit, and the F3 platform shows us where we stand in terms of the F3 strategies. And this smart specialization strategy, ladies and gentlemen, is in my opinion a crucial instrument for preparing a bioeconomy strategy, just because it helps us focusing on the strengths of each region itself. But let's face it, besides the great work, this is just the first step, not fully comprehensive, and we need access to more information and other regional profiles as well. In my opinion, networks such as ERIN, which is based on sharing knowledge, but also the Vanguard Initiative, which states that they want to lead by example, could help to fill in the broader picture. We can find several interesting different regional profiles. I'll give you some examples of strong bioeconomy regions. In Lombardy, here in Italy, 9 regional technology clusters are now finalizing their strategic agenda. Lombardy is coordinating the cooperation between bioeconomy regions in northern Italy. And on the 24th of October, they will have their first meeting between these regions. I'm curious about the outcome of that. In the innovative Lodz region in Poland, you find red, green, and white biotech, and the first industrial bioprocess scale-up in Poland was designed over there. In central Finland, they have a Vision 2040 and a regional strategy focusing on forest, biomass, and water. And in the region of North Karelia, East and North Finland, you find a bioeconomy based on decentralized biorefinery and wood-based materials, forest technology, bioinformation technology, and logistics. And the regional council there coordinates the projects and provides quadruple cooperation. In Germany, in Baden-Württemberg, you'll find a focus on biotechnology and life sciences. In Styria, Austria, you'll find energy and environmental engineering, the eco-world. In France, in Champagne, Ardennes, Picardy region, last week the AFEP meeting was, industrial, agricultural resources and biorefinery work together. And part where I come from, southwestern Netherlands and Flanders, there's a cross-border combination of agro-food sector with chemistry, energy and strong logistics. We call it the bio-based delta. And the central Germany bioeconomy cluster to focus on top research in Lund, marine biotech in Ireland, etc., 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 ladies and gentlemen. Good examples, all of these, but still, what is lacking and what are the reasons and keys to success? All the examples, in my opinion, show us that the key ingredients are threefold. Firstly, political and regional commitment. Secondly, mentioned more and very often, a stable and business-oriented approach and investment climate. And thirdly, the smart specialization strategy mentioned before. It's very unlikely that Europe can support 40 chemistry clusters or 50 bioplants. Regions need to find cooperation with complementary regions, adding new strengths and value chains to form globally competitive clusters. Only this way, stairways of excellence can be created, and new, innovative value chains will be developed. And then Europe will be able to compete with US, China, Brazil, or whomever. So what do we need? We need to learn together, work together, improve together, and pick up the pace together. And don't get me wrong, I very strongly believe in the power of competition. But if we compete globally with the US, China, Brazil, or whomever, we shouldn't over-compete amongst ourselves. We need to change our inner competitive approach into a complementary and inter-regional cluster approach. What kind of globally competitive cluster could be formed if we, for example, were able to combine the raw material position of West Finland with a strong industrial sector in Lombardy? So, we need business to come first, better access to finance for small and medium enterprises, venture capital and support for technical transfer and young entrepreneurs. They are, in effect, the main drivers for the economic drive for the bioeconomy in Europe. And above all, ladies and gentlemen, still mentioned before, we have to move faster. Even if we are moving forward nowadays, we still have to move faster. And to realize the bioeconomy in practice, we must not only invest in research, but build factories and bring knowledge to the market. It requires new initiatives, long-term investments in education and skills. We are talking about growth and jobs, very important for you, growth and jobs. In the bioeconomy sector, in the year 2025, we could be talking about 22 million people working in the sector and an expected 10 euro added value for every euro we invest in bioeconomy. That could be a reality. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we need to step up of the traditional framework and develop new connections between sectors like chemistry, agro, food, paper, and every sector still has its own dynamics, informal networks, culture, and transitions. The continuous challenge to create integrated system innovation. And now I give you an example of the Dutch bio-based delta. There we bring together the sectors under the slogan agro meets chemistry. It's a triple helix way improving. Willem Cederel, who will be later this afternoon, have the floor, might tell you a little bit more about that because he's the leader of the bio-based delta. The Bio-Industry Consortium in this bio-based industrial consortium, this cross-sectoral approach is at the heart of the program. And Willem Cederel, being a CTO of a large company in the former days, is the impersonation of the fact that business is in the lead in the bio-based delta. So this requires a coherent and better cooperation in the value chain between primary producers, processing industry, and consumers all over the levels. I've seen regions being actively responsive in the necessary change, and I believe that regions are key to develop the bioeconomy on a global scale. It is, as in a quote, which is, well, there's some controversy about it, but it is mostly attributed to Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude with one final message, maybe more kind of a statement about what Europe really needs. In my opinion, Europe needs regional cooperation for global competitiveness. If not, we might end up like this guy, alas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that excellent overview, Dr. van der Sande, and for excellent timekeeping, I must say, as well. So after that big picture vision of the regions and the challenges and opportunities they're facing, we can now move to look at a couple of regions in a bit more detail. So this is going to be done in two different groups. The first group is going to stay in this room and is going to look at the potential for the Mediterranean countries in the bioeconomy and the Mediterranean regions. And the other group is going to look at the potential of Central and Eastern Europe in Salle Einaudi, which is, I believe, at the top of the stairs on the right of the reception desk at the end of the corridor. So all that's left for me to do is to thank you all very much and wish you very successful discussions from now until the coffee break. We'll give a few minutes for people to file out, and then the chair of this session on the Mediterranean countries will come to the stage, and that is Raffaele Liberali. Thank you very much.